We are going to listen to Dr. Grande talk about the 10 signs of a daughter being a high-trait narcissist. Going into this, we're going to understand a couple of things. Some of these traits are very, very normal for children to have. When they go into narcissism is when the children take those traits into adulthood. It's completely normal for a child not to want to share, right? But it gets weird when they're a 20-year-old refusing to just do any of what it's like to be a normal person. Hold on to that. I'm hopeful that this is not just someone being like, oh, this is normal stuff that they do. Actually, no, they're narcissists.
Welcome to my scientifically informed insider look at mental health topics. If you find this video to be interesting or helpful, please like it and subscribe to my channel. Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question asks if I can talk about the characteristics of a daughter who is narcissistic. So this is really from the perspective of the mother and father. So I'm going to answer this question by providing the 10 signs of a daughter who is narcissistic. Now, of course, a number of these signs would also apply to a son. One of the presumptions with this list, of course, is that the parents are effective parents. They're good parents. They're not treating the daughter poorly.
This has nothing to do with the estranged parents we looked at. This is assuming that the parents are good parents.
Because if they were treating the daughter poorly, some of these signs would really perhaps point to something else and not narcissism. So the behavior I'll talk about in these signs is behavior I've noticed in my clinical experience, and sometimes we see this in the research literature as well. This doesn't mean that someone is definitely narcissistic if they have one or more of these signs, and it certainly doesn't speak to anything related to diagnosing. For example, narcissistic personality disorder. Only a licensed and qualified clinician can assign that diagnosis. Now, when somebody is young, narcissism is fairly normal. We expect children to be narcissistic, and of course this would include daughters. But we know as people grow older, the narcissism tends to drop. And usually in daughters, we would expect the narcissism to start dropping fairly significantly by age 18 or 19. Sometimes it takes a little longer, but either way, we would expect to see the narcissism and we would expect to see it drop a bit. Sometimes, however, the narcissism carries on as somebody grows older, and sometimes it even gets worse. And what this does is it really puts a strain on the relationships that the daughter has, including the relationships with the parents. Parents endure narcissism from a daughter more so than they would from, like, strangers, of course, because that's their daughter, that makes sense. And because they endure this behavior, they're exposed potentially to a lot more damage from that narcissistic relationship. So it becomes a really, I think, tricky issue, right? Nobody wants to give up on their daughter.
That's exactly what I was going to get at. Not a parent. Don't plan on being a parent. If I had it my way, will not be a parent. However, if I had a daughter and she exhibited signs of narcissism and I kind of just kept going, she'll grow out of it, like I'm doing a good job as a parent, and I actually was, how long would I put up with it is kind of the question. Because it's not 18, right? Like I believe in raising your children past the legal age of obligation. I do. Right now, in the way that I like, the way I treat people when I meet them and when I make friends is that I expect people at like 23, 24 and above to be not necessarily adulty and like having their life together. Cause I didn't and I don't, but you should be empathetic. You should have developed empathy by now. And that's probably like the easiest way to just avoid narcissists. I think by around 24, if I had a daughter that wasn't making any progress, I don't know how I would handle it, but I would definitely separate myself from them. I would talk to them when they talk to me, maybe see them on holidays. I don't know.
Right, if their daughter's narcissistic or has any number of other personality traits, parents want to stick it out. They want to find a way to make that relationship work no matter what's going on with the daughter. So before I get into the signs, I'm going to briefly describe narcissism. In this video, these signs relate both to grandiose and to vulnerable narcissism, the two major types of narcissism. All narcissism is characterized by being self-centered, having a sense of entitlement, requiring admiration, and having low agreeableness, so being disagreeable or antagonistic. With grandiose narcissism, we see characteristics like being socially dominant, extroverted, arrogant, resistant to criticism. This is a fairly obvious manifestation of narcissism, and sometimes grandiose is also called overt narcissism. The other type, as I mentioned, is vulnerable. Here we see a lot of shame, hypersensitivity to criticism, being resentful. This is a little hard to see. It's a little less obvious. It's also called covert narcissism. So I mentioned that narcissism starts young and usually continues for life to some extent. And of course, as I mentioned, it can be severe throughout the lifespan. I tried to order these signs so that the earlier signs line up with behavior we would expect to see when a narcissistic daughter is younger, and the later signs tend to align with behaviors we'd see as she moves into adolescence and young adulthood.
Something that I've made a point of over the last probably year is just not making new friends. I don't have it in me to make new friends. And I just I don't want the responsibility of other people's feelings more so than I already have. So I'm pretty okay and hopeful that I'm not going to accidentally become good friends with people who may be covert narcissists. I don't really need to get into a conversation about keeping yourself safe online. It's easy to fall into holes where you are part of a community, but it's really only one person complaining the whole time. That's not fun. It's not fun for anyone. If your relationship with someone is a lot more work than it is fun, and I'll just use those words, work and fun, you probably don't want to be in that relationship unless they're a child. All right, stop. Raise your children. I don't know how hard of a take that is.
So sign number one that a daughter is narcissistic, this would be constantly wanting and maybe even needing approval, trying to impress the parents and trying to impress teachers. So this is kind of interesting because there can be a lot of motivation to do positive things. For example, good grades, right? Good grades are not necessarily about achievement, about actually achieving a good grade for some sort of internal reward. But sometimes it's for the reaction of the teacher. And this indicates narcissism much more strongly than somebody who does it for an internal reason. So if a daughter is working for good grades, but the reason she gets those good grades is because she wants that teacher to react, that's a crucial part of earning the grades. Again, that points more toward narcissism.
We should talk about these things with some context. When these things are all added up together, narcissism, but they're not all that bad. Some people like being praised. That doesn't make you a narcissist, and we should definitely leave that there before we diagnose people or self-diagnose.
Good deeds for a narcissistic daughter must be observed. So narcissist and non-narcissist do good things, of course, but the narcissist wants credit. So the narcissistic daughter is always looking.
The narcissistic daughter is Mr. Beast.
To narcissist wants credit. So the narcissistic daughter is always looking to teachers, parents, siblings, grandparents, cousins, friends, to show them their good deeds, to show them what a good job they did. Again, specifically to acquire that admiration. Moving to sign number two, this is when the daughter is not directable. This may seem like a small thing sometimes, but when a daughter won't take direction, it can be frustrating for parents, regardless of the age of the daughter. But of course, we tend to use this term directable more in reference to someone who's younger. So a daughter that won't go to bed on time, who won't get dressed for school, who won't do her homework. Now, these particular signs, of course, could also be a sign of ADHD or other mental disorders. So again, we have to be careful when interpreting the signs of a daughter who's narcissistic.
That part's important. This could just be something else. Again, we're giving out signs. All added together may be narcissism, but alone, not all that bad and could be something different. You should be coachable. And what I mean is at some point you figure out that people have been doing things longer than you, know better than you. Probably takes longer to figure that out when talking about your parents telling you to go to bed. But a lot of us played sports. It would be dumb to be no, I shouldn't. I should not cover this part of the field when playing cover two. Instead, I'm going to go down and play Madden. It doesn't work. You just listen to your coach and hopefully your coach is right.
Sign number three is that all criticism or advice is poorly received and almost never followed. We see this comes in a lot of different versions. Magnifying the criticism. So if you're criticizing a narcissistic daughter for not doing homework, she might say, "You hate me." So she really just magnified that criticism and actually distorted that criticism into something completely different. So asking a daughter to do her homework, and that moves into hatred.
That's just all the parents. That's all the parents being "Oh, so you just hate me then?" I guess I was just the worst mom ever. In terms of criticism, somebody once told me that you should listen to what it is people have to say, whether or not you're going to keep the advice. And sometimes you'll meet people who don't necessarily understand the good advice they've been given. And so it seems a little stupid to take advice from them, but they are handing down good advice from other people who do know what they're talking about. And so you should just listen to the things people have to say when being given advice, and then nod your head, and then maybe it's good advice, maybe it's not, maybe you don't hold on to it, but you should take the time to listen.
We see dismissing the source. So the daughter who's narcissistic might say, you don't know what you're talking about. When you were young, they used stone tablets to do homework, right? Like a chisel and stone tablets. So
yeah, you're old, dude. You're probably swimming when Moses parted the sea, and you were like, what's happening, dude? Whoa, that's weird, bro. You're so old, dude. What dinosaur did you ride to school, dude? They didn't even have school back then, dude. It was a trick question, dude.
Suggesting the parents are old, but also out of touch with technology and how things are done these days.
I'm also very out of touch with the technology. I'm very bad at it. Don't judge me, all right? I'm old.
Similar to this would be kind of the you-know-nothing argument, and this would be sticking to this belief even when the evidence shows otherwise. This is actually fairly common when a narcissistic daughter is in love, too. That first love interest, that's a point where the parents just seem to know nothing all of a sudden, right? We see this pretty frequently with daughters who are narcissistic and sometimes with daughters who are not narcissistic.
It's important that he makes a distinction that sometimes we see this in daughters that aren't narcissistic, because a lot of this is just normal behavior. The issue is when it persists. It's super normal for kids to, one, not want to share their feelings and their life and all that stuff with their parents. And it's also normal for kids to feel like their experiences are so unique that their parents don't understand. We've all been teenagers who were in relationships, and any little thing at some point may have been like, oh, mom, you just don't understand. No, you don't get it. You never felt this way. Whatever dumb thing we had to say when we were 15. That's not an issue. That's just part of being a kid. The issue is if you're that person at 15, 16, 17, 18, 20, 21, 22. At some point, you have to realize that everything you have done and will do has been done before. And sometimes people are just telling you their experience with it. Or if like you're 20 in a relationship with a man who's like starting to cut you off from your family and your family points that out, maybe it's the first time that's happening to you, but it may not be the first time they've seen it. And so it's just stuff like that. He's making sure to like be like, this can also just be a normal part of childhood. You should not take any one of these points and be like, oh, narcissist. It's when they're all together and they're all in the same person and it all persists. When this is the person they were at 15, 18, 21, 24. If this is the person they are from 15 to 18, they're a child. They're supposed to be this way. That's why you said at the beginning, this is for people who have done a good job of being good parents. Oh, I was a good parent. I raised the thing. I fed it. I gave it a chocolate once. It was its own Halloween candy and I kept all of it. But I gave it an almond joy, dude. I don't like those.
Also under the same sign, number 3, we see pointing out the disparity in treatment between herself and siblings. My brother never has to do his homework, right? So kind of pointing out there's a difference there. We also see yelling, crying, not talking at all, and maybe doing the homework, if that's the example, with less than 100% effort. So whatever the criticism or advice is about, maybe following it a little bit, but not really doing it correctly. It's a form of resistance, essentially. We also see counterattacking, and this is actually extremely common. It's a fairly effective distraction technique that narcissists of all types tend to use. So, for example, if you say to the daughter, hey, look, you need to clean your room, she might say, well, you never clean your room. Your room's so dirty and cluttered that I almost fall down when I walk in there, right? So
you tell them,
kind
girl.
of taking the attention off of her dirty room and putting it on some sort of flaw that the parents would have.
A good way to teach children to clean their room is to clean your own room. I think that's like a good point to make, is that teaching children by example is probably the easiest way to teach them anything. Aside from that, what we've learned so far is that you can look for traits of narcissism within children, but you shouldn't diagnose them. It is much more helpful in these situations to look at fully grown adults who act like children and use this as a basis to then diagnose them. Acting like a child when you're a child is not a problem. The problem is when it persists past being a child. When you're an adult acting this way, which is what they're looking for these things to end, and that's okay. But when you're an adult acting this way and the things that you are just kind of meant to do as a kid follow you to adulthood, then it's a problem. But yeah, like, don't tell me to clean my room if yours isn't clean. You stop it.
Sign number 4 is being jealous of a sibling. And this would be more so than we would usually see, because this type of jealousy with siblings is fairly common. So this would be something like, you've always loved them more than me, when talking about siblings, playing the victim. And what becomes, I think, complicated here is that the truth is sometimes parents do have favorites, right? And to put it bluntly, sometimes parents do love one child more than another. This actually happens all the time. This is remarkably common. But a lot of parents, of course, want to say that they love all their children equally, which makes sense. That's a socially desirable thing to indicate. So if the narcissistic daughter is not the favorite, that adds kind of credence to this argument. It makes it a little bit more credible. If they are the favorite, though, they tend to say the same thing. They still play the victim, although being the favorite, I think, does satisfy the narcissistic daughter for a while. This can be something that is really consistent with the narcissistic attitude and can therefore be agreeable to a daughter who's narcissistic, right? So if they are the favorite, this particular sign, sign number 4, I don't think is as visible. Sign number 5 is taking sides with one parent against the other. And usually this is in a fairly mean-spirited way. Again, not the normal behavior we would expect to see between parents and a daughter. So they might say something like, to a mother, they might say, "You're the reason Dad left." Or
Ew.
to a father, "You're making Mom unhappy." They might say, "I wish Dad would leave you so I can live with him."
Unfortunately, a very normal thing for like an 8-year-old to say, maybe even 13, 14, 15, when they're like that age of like, I want to have a normal life. And normal to them may be 2 parents in their head. Or like one of their parents is much more strict than the other. One parent takes the brunt of like raising them, and so the other parent's the fun parent. Whatever. Unfortunately, a normal response. The problem is, if you're 25 and saying that, weird. There's no reason you should be saying that. As a kid, things come out.
"I don't know how she tolerates you." Or something a little bit more antagonistic, like, "Dad says you're a terrible lover." Ouch, that one's pretty rough. And Mom says if it weren't for having kids, she would have left a long time ago. That one's also a little bit unkind, right?
Dad says you're a terrible lover is wild. Imagine like that being something that like your parent actually said about your other parent. "Oh, by the way, you're a terrible lover." Where is that supposed to go? The only way I could think of it going is like, I could do better. And that's disgusting. Ew. I can't. At some point as a parent, you should probably teach your kids about sex. But like, I would not tell them about my sex life. That's weird. I don't tell anyone about. The only person who I talk to about my sex life is my partner. I don't have any friends who do the whole like, haha, yeah, like this is like my sex life, or like make jokes about like their sex life with their partner. But like I don't know. That's not my thing. That's not like my sense of humor. Like the whole like locker room talk, I think is weird. I don't actually know anyone who does that. And if I did, I would think it was weird.
And these are ones I've heard many times in the context of my clinical experience. So these aren't remarkably unusual statements for daughters to make in order to take sides with one parent against the other. This taking sides can be the basis for a grudge that's held forever, right? So this particular sign, sign number 5, I think more so than many of the other signs, becomes kind of a foundation for an argument against one of the parents, right? So you never treated Mom right, you never treated Dad right, whatever it is. This becomes a grudge that daughter can hold potentially for the remainder of that relationship, for however long that relationship with the parents will last. Sign number 6 is the overuse of social media.
It's 2024, dude. Every child who does not have like a set structure, who is not immediately going from school to practice to homework, and then passing out, is on social media. What else are we going to do?
Especially in the area of attractiveness, like beauty, and with popularity. So pictures posted on social media that feature the daughter with a large number of friends, establishing that a lot of people like her. We see a lot of comparisons between the daughter's social media performance and that of their friends, like how many likes that a particular post receives or something like that.
This is the last time I'm going to say this specifically because I've said it like 2 or 3 times already. This is perfectly normal to do as a child when you're a teenager. Like, you want to be liked by everyone. You want to be popular. Even if you are one of those people that was just like quiet the whole time, like, well, no, I didn't really care about being popular. You don't want to be disliked by people. You don't. Like, you're an adult at this point. You understand your feelings. Your feelings are you want the world to like you. So completely normal. The issue again is going into adulthood. Do you still care about that? Do you still care about the number of likes your Instagram picture gets? It's hard not to compare yourself to the people around you, especially when you're like me, right? And all of what you do is attached to numbers. How many people view my stream on Twitch? How many people view my videos? How many people subscribe to me on YouTube? All of these things. And it's hard to not be like, well, me and Smallant have a personal relationship and he has 4 million subs. Or Mati's a really good friend of mine and his last video just got 200,000 views. Or I could FaceTime Peter right now and get really good advice. But if we post the same video, he's probably going to get more views than me. Whatever it is, right? It's really hard not to compare yourself to people around you. But there has to be a point in your life where you kind of not necessarily let go of it, but move past the part of it that holds any sense of worth to the comparison. I'm really proud of the people that I call friends in the space that I've made and fell into. If Smallant posts a video and it gets 10 million views, that's dope. If Soya streams tomorrow and gets 50,000 viewers, incredible. If Mati's next video gets 2 million, if Peter hits 100,000 subs tomorrow, fantastic. If Moxie's EK video and the Run and Bun video both hit 1 million tomorrow and he wakes up to 10 million subs, that's fantastic. I'm so happy for them. And there's no part of me that's like sad about it for myself. You should learn at some point, and again, has nothing to do with these kids, because as a kid, it's super normal. But as an adult, you should learn at some point to compare yourself to yourself and only to yourself. In the same way that people who speedrun should only compare their speedruns to themselves. As long as you're getting better, you're making progress, and you're not just like stuck or falling behind, you're fine. The people that you're comparing yourself to probably aren't comparing themselves to you and are probably more than open to giving you advice if you just ask for it. You can't make competition out of people that are just trying to exist the same way you are. And you figure that out after a while. Your competition is yourself.
And with this, we also see increasingly surprising and shocking tactics to get attention on social media platforms. So being more dramatic and being more revealing sometimes to attract attention. And this could include saying really unkind things about the parents, right? So again, kind of playing the victim on social media to attract attention. Even though that necessarily wouldn't be positive attention, at some point that might not matter. Moving to sign number 7, this one involves when the daughter gets to an age where she could go find a job. So in many places this would be around 16. So in a job setting, they might feel like they're being demeaned by having an entry-level position, like a cashier at a fast food restaurant, or someone who works on the sales floor of a retail store. So even just a few days into working this type of job, the daughter may come home and tell her siblings or her parents that if she was the boss there, everything would improve where she works. If she ran the place, the problems would be gone, sales would be up, employees would be happier. She also doesn't think highly of her coworkers. She may refer to them as idiots or people that really deserve to have low-level jobs, and she deserves to have a higher-level job. So putting herself at a different level, even though they're working in the same position.
That's something that's just a red flag in people. Again, I don't really care about the 16-year-old saying any of this. Like, I really don't. But as an adult, I don't really care about the idiots comment. I think generally we're all pretty stupid. The people who you see working like entry-level positions in their like 20s, 30s, 40s are just normal people. You don't know anything about their lives. You don't know why they're working those jobs. You don't know if they just enjoy their job, which is something that a lot of us don't. So you don't really have a space to judge them for why they're working there, and you should leave that alone. So it's a red flag when people are like, oh, I would never work at whatever, that's beneath me. It's fine to go after a job you want or a job that pays you a certain amount, whatever you think that is. It's a red flag to speak ill of people who do not have your same want of that job for whatever reason. Some people are more than happy devoting 80% of their life to work. Some people want the job that they work 60 hours a week, have a long commute, don't ever have any time for themselves except weekends, but make good money. Some people really do. Some people don't care about the money that much. Some people want enough money to live and also enjoy their time off. Some people want to just do nothing but work for the first 20 years of their adult life so that they can save money for when they're older. Also, like, it's so gross to just see people mistreat each other at those jobs. Like, it's whack.
There's typically a lack of respect for the chain of command, right? So not respecting a manager or a supervisor. The exception here would be if that supervisor really admires them. Sometimes this admiration can win the narcissistic daughter over for a while. We also see that the narcissistic daughter expects an allowance from her parents even when she starts working. So the money earned at the job just isn't enough. Sign number 8 is being extremely focused on appearance, noting that her attractiveness is superior to yours as the parents. This is usually more directed at the mother than the father. So this could be something that the daughter has always believed is true, like she's always believed that she's more attractive than the mother or the father. Or it could be some sort of commentary on aging. Like one thing I've heard narcissistic daughters say before is, "It's my time to shine, your time is over," right? Referring to the parents.
I don't understand the context of that. That's such a whack thing to say to your mom. What does that mean? Like, you're taking over the mom's position? In what way? "It's my time to shine, old lady. Go sit in the garage."
So again, kind of overemphasizing the value of youth and beauty and assuming that just because the parents are older, they're automatically unattractive, or at least not as attractive as the daughter. So this has kind of a shallow component to it. Sign number 9 is the daughter believes that you are jealous of them as the parents, right? So this jealousy could be because of beauty, a perceived difference in beauty. You could be jealous of them because they're single and not married to somebody as bad as their other parent, right? Again, in their opinion. You could be jealous of their youth, jealous of their boyfriend, jealous of their career, success, their social network, or they'll try to make you jealous if they believe you're not jealous, right? So if they sense you don't really seem to care, you're indifferent, they may go out of their way to make you feel envy.
Most of these so far have just been like very generic child behavior. Your child's probably going to do this. That's fine. The issue then is if it persists into their adulthood. This one I think is just weird. Like, if your kid is actively trying to make you jealous of their looks or their partner, yeah, that's weird. I don't like that at all. Something's wrong with your kid at that point. You got to put him in therapy.
For example, if the daughter's at an age where she may have in-laws, right? So she finds somebody, they get married, and now they're in-laws. She may say that those in-laws are the parents that she never had, right? Really kind of putting you as her parents up against the in-laws in some sort of competition. Narcissistic daughters may also weaponize the relationship with the grandchildren, like petty games. So let them spend time with the in-laws, but not with you. Or not letting you see them at all. Maybe saying something like, "I don't want you to do to them what you did to me." Again, kind of suggesting that they were mistreated by the parents when they were younger.
Once again, we are under the assumption that the parents in this situation were good parents. This does not apply to the estranged parents that we've seen, who then their like daughter or daughter-in-law goes, "You can't spend time with my children. Last time you got drunk and tried to drown them." Or, "Every time you come over, you do nothing but stare at me and make snarky comments. I don't want that." This is assuming that the parents in this situation did a good job of being parents.
Also, the daughter may be jealous of her own children. I actually see this quite a bit. Specifically, the way the parents treat her children, right? So, when I was young, you never treated me that well. You never loved me as much as you love your grandchildren. So the jealousy isn't contained to just the parents, right? It can extend to everybody, including the daughter's children. Sign number 10 of a daughter who's narcissistic is she seems to be highly interested in whatever inheritance she expects to get. She tends to overestimate the dangers of aging.
That makes so much sense, and I've never put that together. Every single one of like the estranged parents goes, "Oh, you know what? They're not getting an inheritance anymore. They're not in my will anymore." And I never thought about it. I've always just been like, "Oh, yeah, cool. Who cares?" But I just realized that when the parents are narcissists, they're thinking about the inheritance and the will So they're assuming that the kids are also thinking about the inheritance and the will. And so to them, it's a big deal to cut them off when the kids usually just don't care. Oh, that took me months. Max.
So for example, she may think that when her parents turn 65 or 75 or something, that they're going to die within a few months, right? Not realizing that people can live well into their 80s or 90s or sometimes even longer than that. She may treat the parents nicely if she thinks that'll increase the chances of getting an inheritance. She'll be highly sensitive to siblings that are also interested in the material possessions that the parents have. She gets very angry at the parents for spending money, especially on items that aren't technically necessary, like vacations, jewelry, a luxury car. The more the parents spend, the less money is available for the daughter.
That's another red flag in people, is when they care too much about the way other people spend their money. It's none of your business. Does not matter what they do. It's a little different when it is your parents, right? And you have an idea, like if you're the person handling their financials, or if they spend all their money, now you have to take care of them. That's a little different. But just generally caring about the way other people spend their money, when it really just has nothing to do with you, it's none of your business. As much as it sucks, like that's just how that works.
The daughter also may become upset when she hears stories of other relatives who have lived a long time, right? Thinking that, of course, that genetic contribution could mean that the parents will live a long time, right? So if she's looking at her grandparents and they lived into their late 90s, that may make the daughter distressed because now she's worried she's not going to see her inheritance because her parents are going to live so long. So this is really kind of a Machiavellianistic attitude, right? A materialistic attitude. And of course, that's highly consistent with narcissism. So having a daughter who is narcissistic, as I mentioned before, can be a real challenge. Parents often feel really guilty about this. They feel like they caused their daughter to become narcissistic. And they're frustrated because now they have to deal with that narcissism. Many times the parents and the daughter become estranged. I see this all the time. Sometimes it's because the daughter chooses that. That's actually fairly common. But sometimes it's because the parents eventually reject the daughter because they simply can't tolerate the narcissism. And other attempts they've had at setting boundaries have failed. So they just end up ceasing to have any type of relationship with the daughter, which of course is very painful for the parents and typically would be for the daughter as well. Sometimes, however, the lack of a relationship is a mutual decision. The parents and the daughter agree that they're better off not having any relationship. I know whenever I talk about topics like daughters who are narcissistic, there'll be a variety of opinions, people who agree with me and disagree with me, and have other thoughts and examples from their own life experiences. Please put those opinions and thoughts in the comments section. They always generate a really interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found these 10 signs of a daughter who's narcissistic to be interesting. Thanks for watching.
I will probably get this video out today because it's a lot shorter than the first one, and the first one hopefully tomorrow. Oh, but that's it. That's all I've got. Yeah, thank y'all for hanging out. I'm going to go run to take Toast out, and then I'm going to go to Target, and I'm going to forget to make food, and I'm going to do that way later.